Okay, so why don't we get started? I want to thank you all for being here. I wasn't sure how many people would be here. We've never held an event in the evening, so I do appreciate you all coming here. It's a small crowd, but I think it'll be an attentive one, so that's what's most important. I also want to thank Dr. Petit for being here today. He was very gracious to accept our invitation. As some of you may know, he represents the 22nd District that serves Plainville and parts of New Britain. And you've been elected twice, is that right? Okay. Been there for a while, and he has some very interesting insight into the way politics works at the state, local level. He's going to share some of that with you tonight. I think he likes the question and answer session, so he may start with that right from the start. So he wants you to be involved and active in the conversation. And we have a mic that will be passed around. Not that you may need it, we're all kind of close, but if you want to use that, you can. Just a couple of things about the Civic Engagement Institute. This is the organization that's sponsoring this event. This is our 5th event of the session. And, you know, between you and I've been looking forward to this one in particular since January, since Dr. Petit agreed to be here, because I would like to hear him speak. He has a lot of good things to say about politics, maybe how some of you young people in particular could get involved in community service and politics yourselves. So he's got a lot of words of wisdom, and I wish he run for governor. I have not been able to convince him to do that just yet. Maybe someday. All right, so we're going to turn it over to Dr. Petit. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
I was gonna be in church getting my feet washed for the Christians, Roman Catholics in the crowd. So a change of pace. And it's partly a midlife crisis, orange shoes and happy socks, but it was also MS Day at the Capitol. The new colors are orange and black. So. And my son's 5, his favorite color is orange, so every day I get up, he wants me to wear orange shoes. So today I had a reason to wear them. And with that, I'm going to start with advertising because MS Day. MS has about 9 different walks around the state coming up. The closest one here, West Hartford. I always do the Cheshire one, which is May 5th. And they look for volunteers every year. And so, Kate, if you're interested in walking or volunteering, they said they still need volunteers. NationalMSSociety.org. Kate Moore. That's 913. Student doctor before my life. Pharmacist and subject. And we, I'm the president of Petit Family Foundation. We have a golf tournament coming up in June, which I think we're fully stocked with volunteers, but we have our 5K in July. Sunday in July. I think it's I'll look at the calendar. It's 17th to 21st, and we always need volunteers. And you can call us at 860-479-1436. That's the Petit Foundation. Office right in Plainville, right across from Bolo Baker for people who live downtown Plainville. This is MS Society for their 9 walks that they're going on. This is a 5K and fun run. So if you're so, those are 2 right off the bat.
Those are on your website too, aren't they?
They're on the website. Yeah. That's right. You are modern. That's right. The website.
Oh, I may not be modern.
No. PetitFamilyFoundation.org and MS NationalMSSociety.org. Okay. Good thing. MS has just changed up all their stuff just to confuse all of us out there. They had all the stuff we've done before. They sort of reorganized. So we are, knowing what I know now, but they made this shorter. Everything self-populates on your computer, so it's easy. But it's PetitFamilyFoundation.org. So it's But yeah, I was elected 2 years ago in 16 at the ripe old age of, I guess I was 60 years old. Hadn't run for office before because I was busy being an endocrinologist, so that took 70 hours a week on a slow week and 80 or 90 hours a week on a busy week. So I don't think you can really do it. I'm not sure actually how some of the people up in the Capitol that have regular jobs now. I mostly volunteer for the foundation and don't have another job per se, so I'm not sure. Because we're in a budget year this year. Budget year goes from like first Wednesday in January, second Wednesday in January to the first Wednesday in June, and it's it can be a 50, 60 hour work week. So I see people struggling, and I'm close. It's 10, 15 miles to get to Hartford, even though, as you well know, 84 can be a pain. So the commute is 16, 17 minutes at midnight, and sometimes an hour at 9 o'clock in the morning. You have to get there. People, obviously, there are people from Stony and Greenwich and all over the state. I'm not quite sure how they do it. And my co-chair, I'm the ranking member, our chairman, the co-chair of public health, Jonathan Steinberg, comes from Westport. On a good day, it's like 75 minutes for him to come up, 75 up and 75 back. On a bad day, it's 90 minutes up and back, so it's 3 hours in the car. So I guess you get to listen to a lot of radio or music or books on paper or whatever your pleasure is. I ran in 16 mostly because of the budget. I got a little crazy listening to every year that we had estimates for revenue, and within a quarter we'd say our estimates were wrong. And I kept thinking, wow, there's really a lot of smart finance people out there. How come our revenue estimates are wrong every quarter? Or why don't we look at the revenue from last year and cut it by 20% budget to that, and if we get more in, we have more money, we can spend it, but we always seem to budget too high and be in a deficit. So I was sort of the impetus, sort of reading things in the paper, hearing things, and saying, there's got to be a better way to budget, which is why I ran in 2016. As a state rep, anybody can run. Young Mr. Haskell from down in Fairfield County, I think he's about 22, he got elected to the Senate. I think he's the youngest guy up there. I don't think he's the youngest guy ever elected. I think there's a guy in our caucus 2 terms ago, I think it was 19 when he got elected. So I think you just probably have to be 18, and that's it. I don't know if you're preventive tax. I didn't look up that law. If you're under 18, you need to just get either the endorsement of a party, you can run independent, and with the citizens election program, not to bore you with the details, you get a certain number of signatures, it's not many, like 150 signatures, and raise like $5,000. You'd be eligible for some money. Some people think it's the greatest idea since to use the old phrase sliced bread, that everyone's on the same playing field, everyone can be eligible for the same money. But obviously there's races like Senator Needleman, who got elected right against Moses Joe Ryan. He spent something like $800,000 on a state senate race because he had enough money. But most people use the citizens election program, and so I think I raised 5, and I think they gave me about 28, so a total of 33. I think we spent around 19, and we returned like 14,000 back. Don't quote me, we tried to do 12, 14, so we didn't use all of it. We didn't think we needed to spend all of it. First time through, I was running against a 22-year incumbent, so we spent all of it. So first time, spent all of it. Advertising, mailings, and things are very expensive. But in any case, you all can run in your own towns if you have an issue. There's certainly many younger people who've been elected sort of in the 20s and 30s in this last go around. I'll tell you, it's far more time consuming than I envisioned. I didn't know that I was smart enough to ask that question about how much time it was. I just assumed I could do it, but it's to get to all the meetings and do all the things you need to do, because I asked for appropriations, so appropriations is the committee that works on the budget. And it's a $41-42 billion with $8 billion 2-year budget. So it's like 800 to 1,000 page budget. It's lots of numbers. Thankfully, it's broken down into about a dozen subcommittees. This time through, I am on collective bargaining, which has to do with labor contracts and the like. Public health, which has to do with the public health department, the office of chief medical examiner. And judicial and corrections, which has to do with the Department of Corrections and the judges and all the courthouses. Some of the big monsters out there, Department of Children and Families, the DCF, they have a budget that's nearly $1 billion by themselves. So it's about 21 billion per year. So DCF's almost 5% of the budget by itself. Social services is very similar. Developmental services very, very similar. They are very, very, very big budgets. So those are big subcommittees. So appropriations is what's called an A committee. Public health is an A committee. They meet 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, typically. The B committee is the other one's energy and technology. I was on commerce and I switched to energy and technology. Sometimes you put in for the committees you think you're interested in, and your leaders. In my case, the ranking member, Themis Claridis, is the chief science people. On the other side, Matt Ritter from Hartford is the majority leader. So the guys on the Democrat side sign up for, put their choices down, and then Matt signs on the committees. He gets some input. Sometimes I go, no, we need you on finance because you're a smart finance guy, and we know you don't want to do it, but you're going back because you know more than anybody else. Or, we need you on human services because you know more about human services. So sometimes people want off a committee, and the leaders say, no, you can't go off. Because again, those big committees, public health, though we'd have 3 potential meetings a week, we would often meet on, we'd have the meeting on Monday and then go back to the office and meet with the leadership and talk about bills for 2 or 3 hours. And appropriations, we'd have the meetings on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but then our collective bargaining group would meet on Tuesday, and judicial and corrections would meet on Thursday, and the other subcommittee would meet on Friday, so you can have meetings 5 days a week. So a lot of work, a lot of interesting things to learn. Energy and technology, I was actually talking with one of the lobbyists yesterday at lunchtime, who was a state rep, then became a state senator, got out of the game, and now he's a lobbyist, he's got an interesting perspective. And I said, man, energy and technology is really complicated. I was a biochemistry major, and so biochemistry at some levels complicated. Energy and technology to know about where natural gas comes from and how we get it to the market, how you make electricity, how it gets to the market, regulations for electricity. The old Dominion fight with nuclear, solar, recycling, all the morass of regulations we have concerning it. It's really complicated. So I was amazed and somewhat overwhelmed. So I tried to follow my rule in that energy and technology. I did 99.9% listening and very little talking because most of the people in the room know more about it than I did. So I tried to learn, first 3 months into the committee. So complicated. And there's about 23 different committees. So a lot of other committees you can be on. Aging, finance, which is the opposite of appropriations. We figure out where the money's going to be spent. They figure out where the money's going to come from, taxes, etc. The taxes, the tolls. So there's general law, there's government regulations, there's children's, there's higher education, there's education in general. There's planning and development. So depending on what your interests are, there's a lot of things to do. The Connecticut's, so 151 reps, 36 senators, representatives. We represent around 25,000, so they're broken down. I think some of it's a little bit crazy. There's some people have pieces of 3 towns, which seems a little nuts from a common sense point of view. Thank God I have all playable in a section of New Britain. Some people will have 3 towns. Some of the guys in the north, this guy in the fourth, Ryan Illinois, Maria Horn. Up in the northwest, they have 9-10 towns because they need 9-10 towns to come up to 25,000 people. So they have to memorize a long list of towns and then say who they represent. Same thing in the Far East. They're at the quiet corner. A lot of people represent 5, 6, 7,000. So they're very small. The Senate's, there's 36. They represent about 100,000 people, about 3.6 million people in the state. So if you're from and as you are well aware, we only have about 7 towns that are above 100,000, Hartford, Bridgeport, Haven, etc. So some people have one city, but most of the senators have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 towns they add up to 100,000. Right around here, Henry Martin's got Plainville, Bristol, Wolcott, Plymouth, and maybe that's it. Plymouth, Derek was in Plymouth. Farmington, this is Derek Slotman now, right? This is Derek. We're having a special election that has Farmington, part of Bluefield, and part of Burlington has got 5 seats. So that's the lineup. New Britain, General Mazzaro just won in New Britain. He's got part of Farmington, so it's plenty of Mazzaro. I can't say that I'm totally familiar with the set of maps where the lines are tracked, but he's got part of Farmington, New Britain, and Burlington. So that's how it goes. We do a biennial budget. This is the budget year. The budget years are odd years. So we start in January, we finish in June. Obviously in 17, my first year we didn't. We went all the way through to October, November. Next year's, and you can submit bills. So you can come to me as a constituent and say, hey, I need a bill. Well, I go to the elementary schools come and visit all the time, and they say, I want you guys to put in the bill that you need more recess and gym time because they're giving you too much classes and your brains are all fogged up and you need to actually exercise more. And I said, you're going to submit a bill to me about more exercise time. So I think you need more exercise time. And you can submit those in the budget years. Next year, the so-called short session goes from February through May, only committee bills. So if I wanted to submit something like that, I'd have to go, say if it's going to go through education, I'd have to go to my person in my caucus who's on education and say, hey, Kathleen McCarty, I want to put a bill into the education committee about more exercise in K through 6 because they sit on their butts too long and it's not good for them if they exercise more butts and their students. There's a lot of data to prove it. She'd have to convince the leadership on the education committee to put forward a committee bill that we would talk about. That's just the way it's evolved. So you can't put an individual bill. Obviously, it can come from an individual, but it comes forward as a committee bill. Right now, which is why this year we have over 4,000 bills, which made public health feel like 450. So I think with that little bit of background, I'm going to hold there because I want to talk about other civic engagement through the foundation. So I'll hold it there and maybe take some questions from people about, just to give people a little background on how it works and see if people have questions on running for office or the House. I know a little bit about the Senate. I ate some of the free pizzas today, so I usually have better food. And so
I have. So a lot's been made of the polarization at the national level of politics. Media reports on it all the time. And the narrative is that kind of polarization is trickling down to the state and the local levels. Is that your experience? Do you find that level of partisanship exists in your area?
I think there's honestly there's some. I don't think it's as extreme as it is nationally. I think it's probably because it's easier to know people, even though there's 151 of us. I know Rick Lopes, I know Bobby Sanchez, and Peter Kirchek from New Britain. I know Chris Edwards from Bristol. I was right opposite Derek Slotman. He was in the House or office, so I spent as much time talking to Derek as anybody else. So I think there's probably a little more familiarity at the state level. The polarization may be more, even though we're a tiny state, maybe more geographic. The cities have certain wants and desires. The rural areas have certain issues, and this might be a little more suburbia here. So those three major sort of have different needs and different wants per se. So I would say the polarization maybe tends to be more geographic as opposed to, although as it works out, many of the cities have Democrats, so it works out that way. But I think it's not because they're Democrat, I think it's because it's a city and they have a certain agenda that they want to push. And the rural areas go, we don't want to do that. Here's how we do it in Pomfret. Here's how we do this in Salisbury up in the corner. Here's how we do this in Union, Scotland, the little places, Basra. You know, great. You know, the Hartford, Bridgeport can do what they want in that regard, but that's not how we do it here. So that's part of, you know, sort of the beauty and charm of Connecticut's 169 fiefdoms. The problem with Connecticut's 169 fiefdoms. The big fight this session over Senator Looney and the governor wanting to do some forced regionalization in schools and say, you know, if you're under 2,000 students or 40,000 population, so Plainville, you're going to have to join in with perhaps Burlington and Terryville to share services. People were basically pretty nuts. You know, it's big common between us crystals, so how we can share services. They said we do it already on a voluntary basis. We've you know, for Plainville, combined finance director for the county, finance director for the Board of Education, so one position that's inclusive. We try to get a combined group to buy Chromebooks and textbooks and supplies that they need to lower the cost. So the big 5,000 people came up for all the events of the bills that were on regionalization. We say, hey, we're happy to economize and try to regionalize, but we don't want you, the state, you know, I guess me, don't want the state to tell us how to do it. We want to do it, we want to figure out how to save money. So you tell us. Because what Hartford needs to do to be more efficient is way different than what Salisbury does, or Union places. You know, the argument always gets to the top level of the superintendents. It's like, well, you have a superintendent in Farmington and one in Plainville and one in Southington and one in Bristol and one. There's 5. Why don't you just have one and have a regional superintendent? But the same thing you guys face with 13 community colleges, which you're going through now. We're calling them CEOs now, right? Mr.
business model.
Yeah, so going, you know, sort of at a lesser with now 169 with 13 colleges, the same thing, kind of discussions you have in the community colleges as well as your JP, you're sort of leading, you know, your, and obviously, emotions are pretty high on those issues, university and colleges. So yeah, so I think there's I think that, and I think people up there with different motivations. You know, to be perfectly frank, I think there's some people that are very, their town, city center, and that's who you're representing. And there are some people who say, it's good for the whole state, it's good for everybody. And some people are of a, you know, mindset, you know, I want what's good for X town or Y town. You know, and if it's a problem for the state, so be it, but this is what's best for us. So there's a little bit of that dynamic push and pull. You know, my thought is, I'm not trying to be righteous holier than thou, but Connecticut's a pretty small state. You know, if it's good for the state, it's good for most of us. So I tend to try to take, I guess, coming from a medical background, if we have a policy that works, how to take care of everybody with diabetes. We don't need to necessarily treat diabetes different every time. We can treat diabetes the same. We can treat hypertension the same. We can have policies for doctors and nurses that work everywhere. You can have little local variations, but not an objection. So there's a little polarization on that level.
So there's a couple of things I want to ask you, Dr. Pettit. Just touching on what you're, so how do you change that mindset? Because if you have a rep up there that's fighting for the town, and the example of Bristol with the Magna Store Company, the 55 million that was designated for Bristol. If Bristol didn't latch onto that, chances are that was going to go away to some other town. I don't know if that would happen, but usually that's how it happens. So I agree with you. I think what's good for Connecticut is what we should be working for. How do you change that mindset?
I guess it's probably very difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's partly, it's hard to say this in 2019. I think at some level we have to move a little slower. 4,500 votes. anyone here who has a mind that's reasonable? I'm assuming y'all do. Anyone think we need 4,500 new laws? And you go, oh, you know, and a lot of them are repeat, so maybe it's 1,500 new laws. So we need 1,500 new laws. And it's no. You know, in public health, a senator got elected from South Windsor now, so I was the only one to be up there. So he's like, I got a pretty good handle on public health, but I don't think we needed 450 bills. We probably needed 10 really important ones and spend more time on it. It's sort of like telling you guys in school, hey, it's your freshman year, you're going to take 35 courses this year. You need to know a lot of stuff as opposed to saying, you really need to divide things pretty well. We're going to do, you're going to have, I'll be old school. You're going to take your English course and learn how to write well and communicate well. And you're going to take some sort of history to learn about where we came from and what we've done right, what we've done wrong. And you're going to take some finance so that you know how to take it, etc. But we sort of spread ourselves too thin. So I think we need to slow down. I think we need to, because the schools make me think about it from appropriations. We fund public schools sort of in one box over here in a certain way. And then we said, oh, by the way, we're going to go tech schools, which I'm all for. Very pro board. We fund them in a different way. We said, oh, by the way, we're going to magnet schools because of Chef versus O'Neill and this and that. And maybe different. So now we're going to fund these guys in a different way. And we're going to have charter schools, which are totally different. We're going to have charter schools we're going to fund in this way. And then you have the private schools that are hanging out over there. So you have these multiple funding mechanisms. It gets really confusing, and I've been, it's my third year on the probes, and I go, how are we funding these guys? What do these guys get versus these guys? It's all a very complicated formula. And it gets to your question of, so does Bristol need a prep or a charter or a magnet school? Does it make sense? Will it be helpful to Connecticut as a whole to have another school like that there, whereas Bristol Central, Bristol Eastern, St. Paul's, and Bristol Tech? There's 4. It's not like it's Manhattan, it's Bristol. There's 4 there already, so now we're gonna slap another one in. So does that make sense in the grand scheme of things? I don't know the answer to it.
And I don't either. I'm not, actually, I'm on the committee.
Yeah.
And I don't even know.
So from the state point of view, I think you got to back off a little bit, as opposed to everyone rush to get the money, so you can bond the money because you're afraid it's going to go to somebody else. Say, what do we really need? You're in central Connecticut. It's a correct school in New Britain on Slater Road. And when you go to 72, it's probably about a 9-minute drive to get from Memorial Boulevard to the correct school on Slater Road in New Britain, which is, I drive by and go, oh my God, that's a huge new building. Almost like a low cinema. Every time I drive by, I think it's a cinema, it's really high school. But does that make sense? From helping the kids in the community and from the state, from a money point of view, so I think at some level we have to slow down and take a look at the big picture. I don't, easy to say, hard to, I would be taking enough time to look at the big picture. We had these little skirmishes in public health about vaccines and pre-exposure prophylaxis, and one of the controversial bills you hear about is you have 13 or 14, 14-year-old brother or sister that comes into the clinic and they tell the doctor they're having high-risk sex. The doctor wants to give Truvada, which is the HIV drug which you can use for prophylaxis, pre-exposure prophylaxis. And so there's a bill to allow the doctors to do that. So your 13-year-old brother or sister comes and you give them the drug. A lot of people are crazy about something. I'm a parent, it's my kid, I need to know. They go, well, they're not going to have to do that. They're just going to go out and have high-risk sex and end up with HIV. So it sort of comes down to you believe in the argument that you'd really rather give them the drug, protect them from HIV, versus be caught up in the parental rights issue. And I had a hard time with it. You know, come in the background that I come from, family of 5, Roman Catholic, but I came down to, I said, you know, my son's 5 now, my son's 12 or 14, 16, whatever. Do I want him behind my back getting a drug that might keep him from getting HIV if he's not going to talk to me? I guess the answer is yes. And we can fight about it later on. I can say, you know, William, I'm not happy with your choices, you know, with, etc. You know, like the discussions we have for parents. good mentors with people. But I'd rather have them be protected. So am I totally happy about it? No, but I prefer the doctor to feel comfortable giving it to them. It gets, I don't want to bring it up just to talk about it, gets caught up in the DCF kind of, this Department of Children and Family Issues. With this 12-year-old, probably a mandatory report to DCF, so the DCF, if someone's 4 years older, if it's a 14-year-old who's having sex with an 18-year-old, sort of a report to the police and DCF. But you give them the drug so that they don't get this bad disease, and then you got to follow through. So it gets complicated. And so, talking about that issue, you know, in committee, we had one public hearing. The public hearing went 15 hours, but we had about a dozen bills. So all 15 hours there was probably about 3 hours on this one bill, and I don't know that 3 hours was quite enough to go through all the machinations of this bill. You know, like I said, we had over 450 in our committee. We probably had public hearings at about 50 or 60. And it probably was not enough time. And I'll give you two more, a little less sensational. Asbestos, we had an asbestos bill, we had a fire retardant bill, flame retardant bill. And we got to the end of the law, we're getting our committee, the chairs and the ranking members, I said, I'm totally confused. We had one group of people come in and tell us fire retardants are really bad, they do this, and this, and we got this other group over here saying, oh my God, fire retardants are the best thing in the world. I have no idea what the truth is. I'm a reasonably smart guy, but we have opposing testimony that's miles apart. I don't know what the truth is, and none of us are fire retardant experts. There's no chemist on this committee. There's no fire experts on this committee. And just that I think we maybe shouldn't do anything with it, because the only thing worse than passing probably a mediocre bill is passing a bad bill. It doesn't make sense that it's not going to pass. I don't know what consequences are going to be if we pull this fire retardant out and more people die because we pulled it out, or if companies go out of business here, or they pull their products out of the state and people can't get them because we do this. We need to understand what's real, what's true. And so there's, again, getting back to the question there, John, is, I think we need more time. We need to go a little slower on some of this stuff, but it's sort of rush. It's sort of self-imposed deadlines based on Mason's rules. You can start putting the bills on this date, and I think our deadline was like April something. So we heard bills February and March, and then the first week in April we're done. So it's not enough time for some of this stuff.
So in your example with flame retardants, in that case you had two opposing views, and so you chose to take a no vote and not act on that. What if you had one view, and they seem really convincing, but you don't have the same scenario, you don't have the chemist, you don't know, and this group may have an agenda, a business agenda about things you mentioned. Do you call in somebody, an expert to talk to you about it, or does it just sit on the shelf in that regard? Like what happens?
Good question. We have what's up there. There's a group called, a nonpartisan group called the Office of Legislative Research. Sort of all the nerds up in Hartford that have access, and we'll say, and on public health, it's James Rowan, he's the attorney, and Nicole Bluey. I'm sitting there, we sit in a committee meeting, and say, sitting there and email, I'm sitting there 15 hours of my time, public hearings. James and Nicole, this doesn't make any sense. Do any other states have a law on this bill? Is this really a good flame retardant? What's the stats on cancer? And they will send you back sort of a white paper result. Here's what I found out. Sometimes it's very straightforward, it's cut and dry, and sometimes it's very complicated, so you get a partial answer. So it's a good question, so you go to the Office of Legislative Research. For fiscal stuff like an appropriations, there's another group called the OFA, Office of Fiscal Analysis, same thing. The magnet school, it's just $55 million to do this, doesn't make any sense. What have we paid for magnet schools over the last 10 years? What have other states paid for it? How does this make any? And they'll give you whatever data they have. Or they may say, we couldn't find an answer, we're not sure. And there's national and regional organizations, like on the asbestos issue, we got from the national organization of state legislators, they say, hey, we got this asbestos bill that everyone's confused about, we need some data. And I guess just yesterday, the current administration came out with some strengthening changes to the EPA's regulations on asbestos, which I think will take care of the problem here in Connecticut, which is my viewpoint that the feds have way more inspectors than scientists here, and they regulate this stuff. And federal law typically supersedes state law, so I'm not sure that us passing a state law tending to supersede federal law makes sense, but this is part of the polarization. A couple of these bills were put in because of the Trump fear factor. Trump's going to take away all these protections, so we need to change it here. And actually, EPA comes out yesterday. As far as I can tell, on first read, they're going to try to strengthen some of the asbestos regulations. But time will tell. It's always taking a wait and see attitude. Sometimes we should hear it first.
Like biased in some way.
But you're absolutely right, and because this then, if you guys are all reps from different places, and you're on banking and education and aging and health and finance, a bill can come up in a committee that you were on. What the heck is this about? And it's 10 o'clock on a Tuesday at the end of May. And so the people present the bill. This bill is about doing this, this, and this. And here's what it's going to do, here's why we're doing it. And you're sitting there trying to take it all in. And then you look at the testimony for, testimony against. And you look, going back to this example, flame retardants for the home. The chemical side, wait, and here's what you have to say. And somebody from some environmental agency weighed on the other hand, so here's sort of opposing viewpoints, and you sort of have to weigh it in the testimony. And sometimes then you look and say there's 100 people that testified for and 4 against. And you have to decide whether that's really the way it is, or that these guys are just better at marshaling people out to testify. They got 100 people to come say the same thing over and over. They said one thing and 100 people said it. And they had 4 people come out to oppose it, but they also did different things.
Or they were better at convincing whatever group they have that their information is correct.
So the nature of the public hearing.
Because you can find a study support just work wherever you want to set it. Like, you can give me a point, and I'll find you a study that says that it's true.
Absolutely, absolutely. To that point, one of the former speakers, Mr. Balducci, I think he used to limit bills. So the speaker, he would say to the committees, and some of these are sort of unfair, say, education. You can have 10 bills come out of your committee that year. I don't want to hear about 30 or 40 or 50 bills. You do your 10 most important things. I think we probably need a little bit more of that, a little bit more of the professor at the top saying, let's line up your priorities because we don't need 1,500 new laws. Let's line up what's important in approach, what's important in public health, what's important here. So I think we almost, we're all trying to go faster and faster, and I think we almost need to slow down a little bit. That's how I feel. I think we need to slow down.
You just mentioned, Dr. Pettit, why don't we do that? Why doesn't someone do that? You just said, give me your top 10, because it's impossible. At 11 o'clock at night, everybody's exhausted. You could just, there's a political name for it. You slip in something that, because it's just, you just want to get out of it.
They're called rats.
Yeah.
Rats in the bill.
I didn't want to say it, but I wasn't sure.
We actually, believe it or not, we found a couple this year from last year. One of the retired public health guys go, hey, on page 874, the implementers, the bill that implements the budget. Because in 874, there's this line that changes this public health code that no one noted, 1,000-page bill, no one noted. So, oh, you're right, even the department, affects the department, they didn't notice it. So we're going back and changing it. There's no fingerprints on it that we can find. I suppose if we got a forensic computer person, we can find that we changed the language of us. I guess the speaker did with Coach Etzel's contractual stuff as well, which was big slip language in the contract with his son in conflict. Which I heard about the same thing you guys did. What else? So it's a trouble more work than I thought it was going to be.
So, I kind of want to switch gears for this question.
Sure.
So, for those of us that maybe don't have the time or want to get into politics, what has been your experience as the most effective way as a concerned citizen to influence, get to politicians like yourself when you're really concerned about either a bill or a topic that's coming up for discussion?
Great question. My answer, people have different answers, though they're probably some of them. I think most important way is, number one, to be educated. I get lots of emails, phone calls.
This one's on the top. It's red.
Don't understand the bill at any level. So they have to be handicapped. So it's important to read the bill, as dry as many of them are, so that you know what you're complaining about. Secondly, I think in this day and age, for most of if you know somebody that's in your town, I have a once a month at Bolo, and once a month or so at Rebel, I think and same thing in New Britain, and people can come and chat. And it tends to be the same 6, 8, 10, 12 people almost every month. They're the same people who show up at town council meetings. So a lot of us will do something once a month where you can come and talk to us. You can always make an appointment. Obviously that's difficult. You schlep up to, most people don't have offices per se in the district if you're at the house. You can come up to Capitol. Probably the most effective way is just an email, the modern era. And it's not an email that all the students at Tunxis circulate and everybody sends the same email. Because once you've seen it 3 or 4 times, it sort of goes in the folder. But if you say, I don't like this bill, I don't like this reorganization of the colleges because of 1, 2, and 3. Sincerely, Jane Smith, Joe Smith. No, those are good points. Sort of the 3 executive points. They understand the issue and they have 3 good points. And then when I get a couple more, and they're similar but not the exact same cookie cutter thing. So I think email is probably the most effective and most cost effective. And I think if it's your own email and it's short and it's concise. The in-person and the email being inflammatory almost never helps. I have an example from yesterday. Early voting, trying to get on the ballot, and one of my constituents from New Britain was there. I would have been good if she was one over there. But there was another woman over there who was pushing the issue, and she was just in my face. And after about 7 minutes of that, I was ready to think, sort of no matter what you say, I want to vote against it. So I would say, sometimes you can be angry, but being obnoxious almost is never going to help your cause. And I went back into the house, and people said, oh my God, that person out there, was she was in my face. Half the stuff she said was okay, but just, so being abrasive is, sometimes you're PO'd. I'm PO'd much times, so being abrasive almost never helps your cause at all. This lady probably turned out more folks on early voting. I just tried to say, I think about it, I think it's a good idea, but there's multiple. A lot of people will call up and say, I want you to support House Bill 4141. And I'll just say, I think it's a good idea, but I'm not going to support it right now in April because it could be amended 3 times between now and then. Bills maintain the same title, and sometimes they have to vote out. It's a totally different topic than what you started with. So you get yourself in trouble by supporting something that ends up being something else. So most people are relatively cautious and wait until it gets to the final form and say, yeah, this makes sense. I was talking to these guys before about the family medical leave. Almost everybody up the Capitol thinks the family medical leave is a good idea, but we can't have a plan that bankrupts businesses and takes a whole bunch of money out of your paycheck and makes it very difficult for people. It's got to be a plan that makes sense for everybody. If you take too much money out of your pocket, it's an issue. If you cause too much hurt to the businesses and they employ less people and it costs them money, it's a no-win. So you need a plan that says, well, I agree with it in theory, but we need a plan that makes a little more sense. And it's that actuarial analysis says this is not going to be insolvent in 18 months or 2 years. For any reason, well, if we can get a plan that works, I'm happy to support it. But right now, I think plans that are out there are going to fail. And then when they fail, they say, hey, you're going to take 0.5% out of your paycheck. We're taking 2.5% out now because we can't afford it. You're going to go, oh my God, what do you mean? You said we're going to take 0.5%. You're taking 2.5% out. It's in the bill. So a lot of people won't support things right off, and that's what I was telling this person. I said, probably support the concept, but I need this, the comment expressed, the devil's in the details. I need to see what the final bill is before you can vote yes and say support this, because it changes from January to March to May to the last week in June. And then vote on it. So I think emails, complicated issues. I had a guy from the grid came in who was in education for 4 years, came and talked to me for half an hour. Made a lot of good points. So if it's a topic, it's like the housing people, homelessness. Homelessness is very complicated. I thought black country is complicated. Homelessness is more complicated than black country. So having the people from the homeless coalition come in and telling me about, here's what we do this and this and this, so I get educated. So on topics, it's sort of good for face. If you guys want to talk about the community college system in a big fashion, you probably have to schedule an appointment and come in with 2 or 3 people, get a half an hour of somebody's time to talk about it globally. Sometimes one bill, you can talk to someone for 3 or 4 minutes in the hallway, and topics you may
Dr. Petit, for someone in this room who's interested in running for state rep or state senate, what type of coursework would be most beneficial to them?
I think you should do what interests you the most, because all fields are covered up there. I think at the risk of sounding like really old here, I think the most important things, and maybe I need a clarification myself. The ability to communicate is important. So if you are not a good communicator, either in oral or written form, it's probably important to practice that, whether it's via coursework. Actually, I went to college 40 years ago, and actually, probably won't believe it. Actually, there's public speaking. There's public speaking 1, freshman year. Had to get up, Professor Herb James, and make a speech every week for the class. When he went away, there was no more public speaking class in college. So communication is critical. I think reading is, so it could be in any topic. I think critical reading is important because the amount of reading is staggering. Just when we're talking about the bills, you can get, it's 10 o'clock at night, you're on the floor of the house, complicated bill comes up, and you're trying to make a testimony. 250 people could have testified on it, and they could submit anywhere from a page to 20 pages of stuff. So you have to pick and choose.
And Chuck was thinking psychology.
Psychology would be helpful, and I think history is very good. It doesn't have to, but it could be almost anything. It could be in business, it could be real estate. There's the real estate laws, the insurance and the banking laws that come out are arcane, and we struggle with them. We meet in what's called the caucus ahead of time, and our person from banking or insurance goes, here's what the deal is, here's what the laws right now federally, and here's what they're trying to change, and here's what it means to the banks, to the lenders, to the people in the street, to your constituents. And you got to get it explained. You got to get the crash course on lending or whatever the area is. So I think almost any area is fine, but I think the communication is critical. I think critical reading analysis. Graphical, it's nice when people submit stuff to us in graphic. A lot of the stuff comes to us in research in graph form. And it sounds simple, you guys are probably not used to it, but being able to interpret graphs and kind of presentations that's very critical. I think being involved, we switch gears to, started the Petit Family Foundation almost 11 and a half, 12 years ago. And I think and before that, I was involved in the community. I was involved in the medical associations. I was involved in the American Diabetes Association. I think being involved in your community is critical. And I think the people that I see up there, the best legislators are people that have served on their town council, served on the Board of Education, have volunteered for the Rotary, and Cub Scout leaders, and Girl Scout leaders, and Little League coaches, etc., because they've dealt with the public, they've dealt with issues, they've gotten sort of the pulse of the community. So being involved on any of those levels, I think, is very helpful. And obviously, that's mostly what you get because sometimes the job is fun, and sometimes it's a total pain in the arse. So, people got a lot of people put up the painful stuff to do it. And even though I said sometimes people go off the rails trying to take care of them, most people's heart's in the right place. They want things to be better. I think sometimes though they go off the rails because they want things to be better for a little subpopulation as opposed to globally. And I think that causes some of more of the polarizations. It's less political, it's more driven by geography per se, where people live, city, rural, suburban. They made this, that's how I see it as birds. Sort of different viewpoints, maybe off the coast.
So you, I'm sure, had a perception of state and local politics before you were elected. Now that you've served for a couple of years, what is it that you'd say has been the most surprising that you've encountered that differs from what your initial perception was? You don't have to name names. If you could, if you want.
I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. I guess one of the biggest issues is that, and obviously it's a big issue in the age of Trump. There's a lot of perception as reality. There's a lot of things that when I come back to the district, people think are true, and I start talking to them. Well, that's not really how it is. That's not what that law is about. That's not what this proposal is about. So we have unfortunately become a society of headlines and sound bites and et cetera. So a lot of the time we spend just explaining what's up. And I probably was the same way, I didn't go to CGA, CGA.ct.gov and look up the bill of meeting. So I'm no better than anybody else. I didn't go read all this stuff either. I did a little bit medically because I was the president of the County Medical Society and then the chair of the council for the State Medical Society. So we had lobbyists and we met and sat and we looked at specific bills. So I probably got spoon-fed and learned from these folks that were our lobbyists. Here's this bill, here's a copy of the bill, read it. But before that probably was about 10, 15 years ago. I didn't do it, I did what, I read the headline, I might read a few paragraphs. If I was interested, I might go to the dynamic resource like Newsweek or Time and read about the topic. But didn't do a ton of research on it. So I'm still surprised that a lot of things are driven by perception as opposed. I guess I wish more, and from our point of view, I wish more things were driven on our committee level by data as opposed to opinion. There's still a lot of silver tongue, I guess they're called silver tongue devils, right? Now there's a lot of silver tongue people who can, as one of my golf buddies says, talk a dog off a meat wagon. And to your question again, when people come in and testify, I give you a couple of examples of that. Appropriations, my first term, 17, hour after hour, 15 hours in the public hearing. People trying to close down some places. It's a alcohol rehab place because there's another place 3 miles away that does the same thing. You can save $1 million. One person, 6 people, 12 people, 20 people, don't close down, blah, blah, blah. So it's wonderful, they saved my life. Sort of an heartstrings, human emotion, sort of human interest kind of Hallmark card kind of story. And after about the 4th or 5th or 7th one, it's noise. And then I had this group from New Haven come in, talking about a program, and it was for folks, men and women, but I guess mostly men, who were incarcerated, got out of jail, and they're teaching them construction training. Trying to get them jobs, get them back into the workforce. And the guy goes, we've cut the recidivism rate, people going back to jail from 82% to 39%. And my sleepy head jerks up his head. Oh my God, data. He says then, 27% of our guys have jobs now. Their peer group who didn't go in this program was like 6% of people have jobs. So So 20%. So the guy, he walked out after the test, and I followed him home. And I said, thank you so much. I said, you're like one of the few people that came in tonight, and this guy from New Haven, who actually presented data. Here's what we do. We hear about it, but you gave us data on why it's working. How you're keeping people out, getting them back to jail, or getting people in jobs, so they support their families, so they don't have to do what they did to land them in jail. So if you go up and present, you guys go up and testify, you can have your heart story, you get 3 minutes. So you got to do your heartthrob story in the first 60 or 90 seconds, then you got to say, this is important for Tunxis Community College because of boop, 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 and give people something, a little meat on the bone, and I think that's always helpful. Not all things have data, not everything does, but when you have it, it's a powerful tool. If you have it and say, this program does this, here's the outcome. You spend $1 million on this, and here's the outcome. You spend $500 on this, so I don't know if I answered the question. So I'm surprised by the fact that perception rules the day more than data. I'm surprised that so few people actually present data, even people that are professionals in their fields. And one of the ladies from one of the mental health agencies who I met my first year came out. She was talking with another person who was at an agency, and I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "I can't stand it anymore. Spend 5 hours of people telling me these feel-good stories, and they're really not helpful because we got a $4 billion deficit. So hearing feel-good stories for 10 hours isn't helpful." She looks at me. She goes, "I'm going to have to change my testimony." I said, "Well, Marcia, you can give us some data on how your programs keep people out of emergency room, keep people out of the hospital, and get them back into productivity." I said, "You'll be way ahead of everybody else because you're all good people. You're not bad people doing bad programs, but you need to tell us what separates you from the other folks and why your style of mental health intervention is better than this one. We need to do what's best because we don't have unlimited resources." And she did change up her. I didn't come out to get her. I was woofing out loud because she knew me. She was listening, going, "Oh my goodness." But she changed her testimony. I think she's more effective. People listen because she gave a little bit more data, which she had. She had it, but she wasn't going to present it. You got to tell people what's happening. So I think it's an hour.
Yeah.
There's a lot of groups around here that need your help. So civic engagement could be this. For us, our race, we need help. We have a Michaela's Garden program where we plant 4 o'clocks. We have many more gardens than we used to have in different parts of the state where 4 o'clocks are an annual that we plant. We've done most of it with grammar schools, libraries, places like that. We got Ojakian Commons out in familiar names. He's a big guy now. His family's been involved with us for a long time. They gave a big donation to the first MS facility in the country where like 44 of the beds out there in the North Simsbury are for people with MS who can't quite stay at home but aren't that enough that they need a nursing home. They live out there, and we have gardens out there that we plant that are in raised beds so that people with MS in wheelchairs can roll up to them and work in the gardens and reach across. They're about 6 feet across, so that people can reach across the whole side, get into the garden beds. So that's one of the programs that we do there. We have a garden on the rooftop of the Science Center, Killingley Library, Pinewood Library, behind the Britain Museum of American Art. If you haven't been there, you should go there. It's fabulous in Hillstead, New Britain. It shouldn't be advertising art, but if you haven't been there, you live in Connecticut, you don't have to go to Manhattan. There's impressionist art about 3 miles out. Very little money. Just fabulous. Hudson River landscapes and stuff in the Britain Museum, out by the National Lodge. It's a treasure trove of culture around here. So I got there, stream of consciousness. We have a garden bed behind the Museum of American Art in Britain at the Lincoln School. Kids plant for us every June. We love it. In the day, early June, we plant the garden. It's right where people run around the park there, the park. So it ends up blooming all summer, July, August, September, October, freezes, which is nice. And the kids love it. The green team, the green squad, and the kids that get into horticulture and science and very cool program for third and fourth graders over in school. So programs like that we do as well.
but thank you so much for coming to.
Thank you for your attention. I hope everybody has a nice holiday.
Thank you.